Hey, everybody. Hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today, that word is gracious. Gracious. Aren't you glad that we serve a gracious God? Now, we're continuing on getting back into our conversations with God, the prayers that we see. And one of the things I want us to look at today is I pray you look at the whole of 1 Samuel chapter 25. We're just going to deal with a couple verses, but I want you to see this whole passage to see what's going on. And it's like some other passages we've looked at before, that here we find that David gets himself into trouble by not taking time to pray. And so essentially, he just to give you a very quick summary, but as always, I encourage you to look and read this for yourself. That he is asking for his men to be fed and for them to be fed by Nabal. And he says, look, man, we have taken care of you. We've been in this area before and there was no problems. And so he sends messengers, and Nabal just goes off, gets all upset. And David says, okay, that's the way you're going to be. Then I am going to wipe all of you out. And so he doesn't take the time to pray. But Nabal's wife hears of this. She comes out, Abigail, and she comes out to basically create peace. She says, look, don't pay any attention to him. And here's a gift and an offering, basically. Let's just put all this behind us. But the thing that I want us to notice is that Abigail was obviously more willing to do what needed to be done than David was. David goes ahead of God, doesn't take the time to pray. And I wonder how often we do the exact same thing. But notice what Abigail, after Abigail had said all this and said kind of her piece, here's what David says in reply to her in 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 32 and 33 today. It says, then David said to Abigail, blessed is the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. And blessed is your advice, and blessed are you, because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed and from avenging myself with my own hand. She basically says, look, let the Lord take care of my husband. And in less than 2 weeks, her husband was dead. See, the Lord took care of his part. He took care of the judgment and the vengeance as he was taking care of David. And just the same way that you and I can get way ahead of God and we can get ourselves into more trouble, even though he may have felt like it was the right thing to do, it was not. It was not justified. The only thing that he didn't do, the only thing that Nabal refused to do was to feed him and his men. Now, that might make you feel bad, and it might make you a little upset that, well, if that's the way they're going to treat me, then here's the way I'm going to treat them. But instead, he was going to kill them all. And in this conversation, he says, look, Abigail, if you hadn't intervened, there was going to be nobody left in the morning. So I want us to look at two sides of this. One, the side of David that chose not to pray. He chose to get in his feelings and in his emotions and just let his emotions take over. And that's when you and we all get into trouble. When we let our emotions do the talking and we let our emotions make decisions. This is why when we say, hey, let me sleep on that, that's a good thing. That we take some time to think about it and pray about it and say, is this really what God would have me to do? I have a feeling David didn't ask God if this is what he wanted to do because he already knew that that's not what God wanted him to do. And I think part of it, even that, he was even using God to say, okay, well, God, you're going to help us through this so we can just wipe them out. So maybe he thought he was doing the right thing, but instead, he should have let God fight his battle. And because God intervened, and because Abigail, instead, I could look to her and say, you know what? I believe she was spending some time in prayer. I believe she knew what was going on. And she was wise enough to know that she needed to intervene before a lot of innocent people suffered. See, that's the difference in having your eyes on God and having your eyes on others compared to David only having eyes on himself and how he felt and how he was treated. Now we know that, I love that the Bible shows us the good, the bad, and the ugly, that David has had great moments. And we also know he's had great moments of weakness as well. But I guess the encouragement for us today is to know that we serve a gracious God who will intervene. He will use other people to interrupt us from falling into sin. But at the end of the day, we still have to listen. David still had to listen and be willing to hear the advice of this godly woman. But I wonder today if we're willing to listen to godly advice. Are we willing to listen to that person who's trying to keep us from falling into sin? And on the other side of that, are we willing to give godly advice to try to keep others from falling into sin? In either case, if we can accept the graciousness of God for our own lives, let's also be gracious to those around us in our lives as well. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.